New reporting is raising questions about State Representative James Talarico's voting address. We'll explain what it found and why it matters today on the Texas Standard.
Texas Standard is a production of KUT Austin, KERA North Texas, Houston Public Media, and Texas Public Radio in San Antonio.
I'm Lucio Vasquez in Houston. Also today, construction crews have arrived inside Big Bend National Park as plans for a new border wall move forward. We'll hear the latest from the ground. Plus, could stores be charging you a different price than someone else? We'll explain how the practice works and why lawmakers across the country are paying attention. Also, the Tacos of Texas podcast is back for a sixth season. We'll get a preview of the stories celebrating the people, places, and traditions behind one of Texas's favorite foods. All those stories and more coming up today on the Texas Standard. No matter where you are, it's Texas Standard Time on this 6th day of August. Happy to have you with us. I'm Lucio Vasquez, broadcasting from the studios at Houston Public Media. Coming up today, construction crews have arrived inside Big Bend National Park as the federal government moves ahead with plans for a new border wall. We'll hear the latest on the project. And later, tacos have long been a way to tell Texas stories. We'll look ahead to the 6th season of the Tacos of Texas podcast and the people and traditions it continues to highlight. But our top story today, you may remember that the Texas Tribune reported in July that Attorney General Ken Paxton, who's running for Senate, appears to have voted in several Collin County elections using an address where he no longer lives. It's unclear where Paxton has lived for the last 2 years, but reporting by ProPublica and the Tribune has linked him to a home in neighboring Denton County since February. Now Paxton's opponent, Texas State Representative James Talarico, is facing a similar claim. Reporting found Talarico voted in 5 elections using his parents' address after purchasing a home for himself nearby. Here to tell us more is Kayla Guo, who reports on state politics for the Texas Tribune. Kayla, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
So, how did the matter of Talarico's voter registration and address come across your desk?
So there had been some reporting in a couple conservative news outlets sort of the week prior claiming that Talarico hadn't moved to a new House district in time to run for it, and claiming that there wasn't any evidence that he had moved. He had said on his voter registration and claimed to move to his parents' home, which was in his new district, after his previous one had been redrawn to be more Republican favoring. So we were looking at that. We were trying to figure out if those claims were true. We found evidence to suggest that those claims are not true, that he did comply with Texas's residency requirements, did move in time to run for his district, and did in fact move to his parents' house for that period of time. But I think beyond that, what came across our desk were records from Travis County, records that his campaign had provided us that suggested that he had continued to remain registered at his parents' home after purchasing a home in the district, in his house district, some 6 miles away, and hadn't updated his voter registration address until a couple years later.
Practically speaking, how did you check his voter registration, against his address? And do we know for sure where he currently lives?
So his campaign had previously told my colleague Zach Despart, who we worked on the story and who worked on the story about Attorney General Ken Paxton's voting, that Talarico lives and currently is registered at a North Austin home that he owns. The voter rolls are generally public record. Some public officials like Talarico are allowed to opt into a state law letting them, redact some of their personal information, including their addresses, which is why it was a bit tougher to determine Talarico's voting history than it was for Attorney General Ken Paxton. Paxton doesn't opt into that state privacy exemption. So it took a bit of piecing together based on both, again, the records that we received back from Travis County, which are redacted, and some records that his campaign had shown us that were unredacted to try to verify or debunk the conservative outlets reporting. So it took a combination of those factors to lead us to where we ended up.
And is it clear whether or not Talarico broke the law here?
The expert said that it takes a little bit more evidence to determine whether or not he may have violated state law. The experts we spoke to noted that Texas's residency requirement is pretty broad and pretty vague. So the law requires you to register to vote where you live so that you're, voting in the right elections for the people who represent you. But the courts have previously ruled that there isn't a single way to determine someone's residence, and to prosecute those cases is typically very difficult because you have to prove that they knowingly or intentionally broke the law, that they intentionally didn't update their address or, voted from someplace that they don't live.
Has there been any response from Talarico's campaign?
Talarico's campaign declined to answer our questions about when he moved to his house that he purchased and about updating his voter registration. They shifted blame to the Attorney General's campaign, saying that Paxton was trying to deflect from his own issues, and had also noted that, some after those conservative outlets had published their stories, that there were some conservative activists that were trying to locate Talarico and his family, and so didn't want to engage further.
So we've got similar accusations against both of these candidates. What's the big picture here? Why does this matter for people like you and me?
Partially because these are elected officials. These are not everyday people on the street who maybe aren't as familiar with what election law and voting law says. I think it was notable for us and striking to us in the case of Ken Paxton is because he has made a career off of prosecuting alleged voter fraud. It has been a cornerstone of his career in public office. It's been central to his Senate campaign, is cracking down on this very kind of alleged appearance of fraud, as it looks like that he might have, engaged in, or at least a similar fact pattern that might have happened to him as well. So I think that is why it was particularly striking to us in Paxton's case. I think for Talarico, after our reporting on Paxton, he turned that on his opponent and talked about Ken Paxton, accusing him of committing voter fraud while cracking down on it such a big part of his political identity. And so we also wanted to clarify the record there, inject some nuance in this conversation. Paxton has since, tried to turn the accusation back on Talarico. He has so far mostly declined to answer our questions about his history of voting and residency, but has tried to turn it on Talarico. So this was an attempt to, clarify the record and explain what seems to be going on here.
We've been speaking with Kayla Guo, who reports on state politics for the Texas Tribune. Kayla, thanks so much again.
Thanks for having me.
There's been back and forth for months over whether the Trump administration would pursue a border wall plan in Big Bend National Park. Now, our partners in Marfa have seen the construction crews arrive. I'm Laura Rice. Marfa Public Radio reports Southwest Valley contractors were awarded a $1.7 billion contract for the project, and now the company's vehicles have been spotted inside the park. Mary Cantrell has been reporting on this. Mary, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
You were in the park yesterday. What'd you see?
I saw Southwest Valley constructors that you mentioned, the border wall contractors for this region of the project, mobilizing in the park. There were lots of their trucks, lots of surveying trucks associated with them, and people moving in, laborers, lots of contractors descending upon the park, one might say. And they were starting to grade remote roads within the park to make it easier for them to move heavy equipment on those roads down to the border. And they were also clearing some land near Santa Elena Canyon, one of the most iconic spots in the park that I'm sure many listeners have been to. There was just a general mobilization in the park that we haven't seen before.
What do we know about what they are set to build?
CBP's current plans call for vehicle barriers, new patrol roads, and other things like buried communication cables. But we don't have specifics in terms of designs. The vehicle barriers are located at various points along the Rio Grande in the park. Some people are worried about those cutting off river access for recreation and have pointed out that there's no access roads on the Mexico side, so, no one's really driving over in the first place. They're not really needed. And we're expecting to see some man camps potentially coming to the park. These are just large, places where the workers will stay. And those are already being developed in the region, in Terlingua, outside of the park's boundaries as well. And we'll likely see some well drilling associated with the project as well.
You mentioned some of those concerns there about access to the river. I guess there are also some specific concerns around a mountain. Can you talk about that?
Yes, so part of the patrol road route is slated to cross Mariscal Mountain. This is a very remote part of the park. This is a large, 1,700-foot mountain above the Rio Grande, and Democratic lawmakers wrote a letter to the DHS secretary last week opposing construction in that area, specifically given the terrain, potential treaty issues impacting the river. And one of their main concerns that they outlined was the use of dynamite to create a new patrol road in that area, because they've kind of said there's no other way you could do it. And CBP claims it does not plan to use dynamite for this project, but people are skeptical of that.
We mentioned this letter from Democratic lawmakers. They're obviously upset about this moving forward. How about people there that you've heard from and spoken to in person?
Yeah, so this continues to be a very unpopular project. Past superintendents of Big Bend National Park have banded together to speak out about, this construction that they're concerned is going to cause long-term harm to this public land. People are arguing, sacred places are being desecrated. This is a protected place, and all environmental laws have been waived to allow for this. And yeah, I've talked to a couple archaeologists that are sort of scrambling to document things along the route as the dozers are coming in. And there's definitely a rising tension among activists on the ground. They were in the park this week. I met with some, tracking down contractors, documenting their work, just trying to get eyes on what they're doing. And some of these contractors were covering their faces like ICE agents, and as they're being documented, and the man camps, people are just feeling this rising tension with these strangers coming in and doing something that they view as not right.
Well, this has become really politically urgent, but do you have a sense as to whether calls to stop are now too late?
I think under this administration, anything can happen. This plan has been shifting ever since it was rolled out. We've seen lots of different versions of the plan. We've heard mixed signals from CBP and DHS and other agencies. So, there's a lot of people that need to cooperate to make this happen. Obviously with the park, it's federal land, so it's sort of a different situation than the private landowners. But yeah, I think anything can happen. They're facing some lawsuits, so we're following that. But the contractors do have a sense of urgency to get this done, and they're moving quickly. So we'll see.
Mary Cantrell is a reporter with Marfa Public Radio. You can find the latest reporting on this story at texasstandard.org. Mary, thanks again.
Thank you.
It's about 18 minutes past the hour Texas Standard Time. You can find Texas Standard each weekday on your favorite NPR station, but did you know we're also available anytime in podcast form? Never miss out by subscribing to the Texas Standard Podcast. You can also check out texasstandard.org to keep up with the news online throughout the day. Coming up, after 30 years, a Fort Worth theater collective is taking its final bow. We'll hear why Scene Shop's founders decided it was time to close the curtain. That story and many more coming up on The Standard. Stay tuned.
Support for Texas Standard comes from UT San Antonio, a Carnegie Tier 1 public research institution, and designated as Texas's National Institute on Aging Alzheimer's Disease Research Center. More at ambition.utsa.edu. Support for Texas Standard comes from Half Price Books, a Texas-bred new and used bookstore, proudly supporting public media and sustainability by keeping books, music, and other media in circulation. Store locations and more information at hpb.com.
It's the Texas Standard. I'm Angela Kocherga. A new state law in New Jersey bans surveillance pricing. That's when retailers use what they know about shoppers to adjust product prices dynamically. That's a nice way of saying they charge certain people more. The law specifically bans grocery stores from engaging in the practice. There's also national interest in the issue. At a Senate hearing this week, Democrats and Republicans criticized so-called surveillance pricing, known in the industry as personalized pricing. Our tech expert Omar Gallaga wrote about surveillance pricing laws for CNET. Omar joins us now. Omar, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, how does this surveillance pricing work?
Well, if you've ever enrolled in a, say, grocery store loyalty program, if you've ever, gotten a gas card at the gas station, that keeps track of, your purchases and gives you rewards, they have data about you. They know how often you purchase items at the grocery store. They know what you're purchasing. They know how much you're paying. And so laws like this would target the practice of, say, raising prices just for certain customers because they know that they are, coffee addicts, for instance, or, changing the price dynamically of something based on, how much they think you might need it and how much you're willing to pay. So the Fair Price Protection Act in New Jersey Jersey outlaws that type of surveillance practice. And one other interesting thing about that, they are also putting a hold on dynamic shelf pricing, which is where you see these little electronic tags on store shelves, and those prices might change dynamically. They're at least kind of studying that and putting that on hold for a year to kind of determine whether that is part of the problem as well. But yeah, I think there's been a big backlash to algorithmic pricing, which we've also seen, in ride sharing. We've also seen there was a case in California of gas stations colluding on pricing that was recent. So yeah, I think there's a lot of chatter around our merchants pricing things unfairly because they have consumer data that they can use to set prices.
So you've mentioned the surge pricing. How does that compare to surveillance pricing? We know that we've seen that from ride-hailing companies at busy times of day.
Yeah, surge pricing is typically due to demand. If, say, you are trying to find a rideshare outside of the Super Bowl and there's tons of traffic and tons of people trying to get a ride at the same time, a surge price would be raising prices for everybody based on that type of demand. Surveillance pricing is a lot more specific. It's using your own personal data that the company knows about you in order to set a personalized price for a small group of customers or a specific customer. So that is a little bit more invasive, a little bit more personal than just a across-the-board demand charge.
So getting back to the New Jersey law, what kinds of products does this cover?
It's interesting because they chose to focus on grocery stores specifically. And although this law that was passed in New Jersey might also apply to other types of businesses, when the governor signed it, they were very specific to say, this is specifically about grocery prices, the price of food, the price of, what's on store shelves in grocery stores, which is interesting because this definitely, as a problem, surveillance prices goes a lot further than just groceries. There's all kinds of businesses that engage in this. So I found it interesting that I think it's because everybody is so concerned about the price of eggs these days.
Mm-hmm. And many other things. You mentioned coffee. So I'm definitely interested in that
hits me right
one.
in the pocketbook.
Yeah. So, is this a consumer protection measure that's more common in blue states? What about other states? What's happening across the country?
Yes, there are other two states that have already enacted laws like this are Maryland and Connecticut. New York and California are considering similar laws. New York has a whole other thing going on right now around apartment and housing deepfakes and fake images, so that they're kind of engaged in a lot of consumer protection actions right now. But yeah, I find it interesting that I look to see if what Texas is doing, and it seems like every other week we're hearing about Texas suing a tech company for privacy things, but not a lot of action here in terms of surveillance pricing specifically.
Omar Gallaga keeps a sharp eye on prices from his home in Central Texas, and he joins us here each week on The Standard to talk tech. Omar, thank you so much.
I sure appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
And you're listening to the Texas Standard. I'm Lucio Vasquez. How do you know when to call it quits? For Stephen McGaw, 30 years seemed like the right time. He's one of the co-founders of Scene Shop. It's a collective of writers and actors. They perform in Fort Worth, and Saturday will be the group's final show. KERA's Marquita Fornoff sat in the audience for one of its last performances.
There is freedom within. It's the opening night for Scene Shop's final production. As audience members file in, they hug old friends, then stop at the concession stand for a can of beer or some wine before settling into their seats. Cover band Willie Natra provides the music. 6 sketches are listed on the program. Some are serious and some are funny. One is about a son trying to write a eulogy for his alcoholic and gambling-addicted dad, and another is about a YouTube food critic who calls himself El Tacarino.
All right, good evening, and welcome to Scene Shop, our 30th show.
That's Stephen McGaw. He studied theater in college and later coached a high school improv group. At 37, he missed performing, but not the full slate of rehearsals that came with it. So he and his friends Les Hoffines and the late Elizabeth Sexton Morrison founded a group with a more casual setup. Instead of putting together a play, their shows included a handful of sketches from different writers.
Les likened it to the stage equivalent of seeing a band. Each song lasts 3, 4, 5 minutes, and if you don't like one, we'll just wait for the next one.
Hoffines and Sexton Morrison eventually dropped off as their careers and family lives got busy. There are usually about 10 or 12 people in the group. High school students, retirees, theater professionals, educators, and writers have all cycled through. It's a DIY community theater.
Since Maud died, they stopped putting mushrooms in the gravy. And Vivian doesn't carry the brand of rye bread that I like.
Well, see, you see, the world is going downhill faster every day.
Tyler Moore is 30, and he's written and performed with Scene Shop. But tonight, he's in the audience. He says the group created an outlet for people to deepen their creative lives.
It's eclectic and funny, but it also will tug on your heartstrings in certain places. So I feel like there's a little bit of something for everyone at Scene Shop, no matter what your background is or where you've come from.
Moore is sad to see Scene Shop go, but supports McGaw's decision.
I don't think these people are really going anywhere. There's still people that will show up to performances or will still perform in the area. So the ties and connections are still there. So that aspect of it, I think, really helps it. It's bittersweet.
McGaw says he's mentally sharp as ever and plans to keep writing. But he's tired, and he didn't want to be in charge anymore. A couple of people said they'd be open to carrying the torch, but he didn't want anyone to feel obligated to do it.
They're young, they're ambitious, they have other outlets. And so I just decided it was better just to let it end.
Here's how he describes his decision to the audience.
I want you to think about the theater troops in Fort Worth and Dallas over the last 20 years, that they go great guns for a while, and then they disappear. They disappear because people can't get along anymore, or because somebody gets a divorce, or because they run out of money, or somebody goes to prison. And that's my speculation, and I'm entitled to it. And you never hear about them again. And I did not want that to be that way for us.
Instead, he wanted Scene Shop to go out with a proper goodbye. So he wrote one. I'm Marquita Fornoff in Fort Worth.
Support for Texas Standard comes from Texas Mutual Insurance Company, committed to strengthening the state's workforce and its communities through safety and wellness grants and education initiatives. More at texasmutual.com/community impact.
From the Texas Newsroom, I'm Matt Harab. Texas is entering into peak wildfire season, and city officials in Austin are warning about the dangers ahead.
A lot of things keep me awake at night, but one of the things that is at the top of that list is wildfire.
Austin Mayor Kirk Watson was among the speakers at a symposium where officials discussed strategies for preventing wildfires. Governor Abbott earlier this week deployed additional firefighting resources because of a rising threat caused by high temperatures and dry conditions. There are at least 5 active wildfires currently burning in North Texas and the Panhandle, according to reporting from the Texas A&M Forest Service. Another day of testimony is slated for today in the removal hearing for Corpus Christi Mayor Paulette Guajardo. Rob Boskamp reports.
Guajardo is expected to present defense against a citizen petition's claims of misconduct related to approval of a $2 million tax incentives agreement for a hotel development project.
Did anybody tell you that there'd been something maybe illegal with the document back at the time?
No. So,
was that
first of all, I'm going to say,
was that a no?
Ajit David was not qualified to make that determination.
That was Guajardo and the citizen petitioner's attorney, Doug Allison, late last month. After the hearing concludes, 6 council members will serve as the tribunal that will determine the outcome of Guajardo's future in office. I'm Rob Boskamp in Corpus Christi.
Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has finalized a deal with Texas Children's Hospital in Houston to create the nation's first detransition clinic. Paxton had earlier sued the hospital, saying it provided illegal transition care to children. The detransition clinic is set to open at the end of October and must provide free care for the first years of operation. Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller says Republican candidates will feel the impact from voters upset over the growth of data centers in Texas.
I'm the lone Republican out there raising Cain about this. The Democrats are raising Cain. They're correct. They're right on this issue. And we're going to lose some elections this fall because Republicans refuse to stand up.
Governor Abbott recently announced a moratorium on data centers. Miller, though, told KACU's West Texas Dispatch that a moratorium is not enough, and without a special session, it will take about a year for new laws to take effect. And national Democrats are adding Texas's 23rd congressional district to their list of potential pickups in November. That district runs from San Antonio into West Texas and was represented by Republican Tony Gonzalez, who resigned earlier this year over a sex scandal with a staffer. I'm Matt Harab in the Texas Newsroom.
Support for these Texas headlines comes from the extended campus at the University of Texas at Austin, seeking to help professionals and their organizations upskill, reskill, and stay ahead in an ever-changing work environment. More at extendedcampus.utexas.edu.
This is the Texas Standard. I'm Lucio Vasquez. Tacos are, of course, a staple of Texas cuisine, but beyond what we eat, tacos can also tell us a lot about tradition, resilience, and human connection. Those are the stories the Tacos of Texas podcast has shared with us for 5 seasons. So where will we go in season 6? It's just around the corner, and taco journalist Mondo Rayo joins us with the full scoop of what the newest season has in store. Mondo, welcome.
Hey, Lucio, great to be here. Thanks for having us on.
Of course, and also with us is Louise Von Asa, a producer on the season. Louise, thank you for joining us.
Of course. Happy to be here.
So it's kind of hard to believe that Tacos of Texas is in its 6th season, but I guess time flies when you're having fun, huh, Mondo?
There's a lot of taco intake in those seasons.
Yes, I can imagine.
Yes, yeah, lots of taco talk. You know what I mean? And we always say that we try to hook people in with the tacos, but then they get to learn about people, identities, and communities. So there's lots to cover in the Lone Star State.
I can imagine. And you know, I'm curious, what would you guys say the main theme of this season is moving forward?
I guess the overarching theme is we didn't want to ignore everything that was going on with the community that is being hit so hard, you know, by all the ICE raids, by, you know, this current administration. So we did a few episodes on that, or at least we talked about it in quite a bit of episodes, actually.
You know, one of the things that Luis thought of is to create our in-studio episodes where people come in and we do interviews, is do it in my home.
Yeah, that's right.
And to have
there's a sense of intimacy, I'm assuming.
Yeah, because sometimes, you know, you go into, you know, some interviews and they're like, oh, I got to get my bullet points in. But no, you know, for us, it's more of a conversation. And having it at home, treating people like family, definitely opened up the conversations.
Yeah.
And the trajectory of the season itself, Mondo, where are we starting off? Season 6, episode 1.
Yeah, I mean, we start with tacos de la casa, right? So that's kind of the theme, and we wanted to start that way. And so we go, and you know, we try to find out the reasons why people are cooking at home and what they get out of it. So we actually go to San Antonio and visit with his abuela, a non-traditional abuela, she calls herself. She made us, you know, fresh flour tortilla, San Antonio style, so that was so good. And then, and you know, people cook for different reasons, for the loved ones, for their grandchildren, those kind of things. Some of the traditions, we talk about that. And then we actually go back to Austin, and we talk to an immigrant mom who was detained by ICE, and she's staying at home, cooking at home because she's scared to go out. And as well as, you know, there's different reasons why we cook at home, and the impact of our environment and what's happening, you know, not only in the state of Texas, but in this country.
Well, I'm curious, you know, now that you guys are on the other side of producing majority of this newer season, right? What sticks out to you about this season in comparison to the others?
I think for me, it's kind of that the thread, you know, of people's stories and this idea around, you know, what's happening in communities has been happening and is still happening, right? But we get through it we get a lot of the connection and the community and the joy through the food, while still, you know, seeing a lot of the communities that are being hurt here in Texas. But we're getting through it because of the food, right?
What I really also like about this season is that, we talk with a member of the Muslim community. We discuss halal tacos. We have a Japanese elder that we speak to, and she grew up in in an internment camp when she was young. So she was there. She's here to fight ICE detention. And then we talk about Black and Indigenous Mexicans. So there's a lot of intersectionality, I feel like, in this season, which I like a lot.
Yeah, we have, we've live events as well this season as well. We had the Black Indigenous Mexican episode was recorded live here in East Austin at Dawa Studios. And then we're also having some live events this fall on Austin's taco history, as well as Amigas Madness, a bracket of the best migas in Austin, Texas.
Well, we've got a lot to look forward to, guys. Mando Rayo is the host of the Tacos of Texas podcast, and Luis von Asa produced Season 6. It'll be available wherever you get your podcasts in just a couple of weeks. We'll share links to it in all 5 prior seasons at texasstandard.org. Mando, Luis, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Support for Tacos of Texas comes from H-E-B, whose mi tienda salsas, marinated meats, tortillas, quesos, and more are inspired by the authentic flavors of Mexico. H-E-B. Here, everything's better.
It's the Texas Standard. I'm Laura Rice. The Syrian civil war broke out in 2011 and pulled the country into a conflict that lasted more than a decade. Hundreds of thousands of people were murdered and an estimated 13 million Syrians were displaced, including Youssef Shabo. He was in college when the war began, and to avoid being drafted, he fled his homeland and left his family behind. Since then, they've reunited in the U.S. and now run an Austin coffee shop that's located in a laundromat.
We're Kurds from Syria. We're a minority there. And because we're minorities, we're usually placed on the front lines, so that's a little riskier than usual. And the only thing you can do is just leave the country. I didn't say goodbyes to any of my friends, to any family members. I just had to leave, we got the phone call, I think, around midnight or 2 a.m. And then by 8 a.m. I had my flight booked, and it was a few hours later. After moving to the U.S. in 2012, drip coffee did not make it for me. It's just too light, didn't hit the spot. So personally, I started learning about mocha pots and espressos and French press and, all these things, but as a personal, hobby. I lived in Ohio for 4 cold years and then moved to Austin for UT. And honestly, the community in Austin is amazing for coffee. I worked in architecture for 3-4 years. And I mean, honestly, working in the industry was not for me. My brother, who was a network developer, he also got laid off. And we both sat down and looked at each other and were like, you know what? So let's start something, that we own. I used to go to this laundromat. I remember the place, and we went to talk to the owner. And I was like, hey, he used to be a customer. I would like to partner up with on this idea. He liked the idea. We started meeting every week. We were talking. So the owner is from Vietnam, and we're from Syria. We grew up drinking Turkish coffee. He has family that runs coffee business between Vietnam and Europe. And so we both kind of liked that idea, and we just went with it. So right now we utilized the faces of old dryers that were functional at some point in that same laundromat. And then after remodeling, we asked the owner to clear out a section of the laundromat to kind of accommodate the coffee shop. And we used that for the counter space. So we opened, and as we start talking to people, word of mouth is going out. You realize that people are interested in our stories more than the coffee itself. And then they start asking us about why don't you offer something, from your culture? When we did the little soft opening party, my mom made a couple of trays of baklava, and people really loved them. And we were like, maybe, we'll have them on the weekend offer the because my mom has she's a nanny, she has a full-time job. And I'm like, I don't want you to work more. Like, the idea of behind this coffee shop is for you to work less, not to work more. We agreed with her to do the baklava like once a week maybe. But then on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, she'll walk in with a little tray. It's like, here you go, I made some more. And, people really love, the baklava that she makes. And so right now it became, a staple at the coffee shop. Honestly, the one thing that I've learned out of this is like adaptability. It's like whatever life throws at you, you have to figure out a way to make the best of it and just run with it. So yeah, right now I'm living my best life. I'm telling people I'm physically very tired, but mentally very happy. My name is Yusef Shabo, and you're listening to the Texas Standard.
Austin's Waterloo Records is known not just for its music selection, but also for its in-store performances. After more than 40 years in business, Waterloo recently got a new owner and a new location. The move was forced as the landowner has plans for a different development. Still, the Texas Standard's Portia Goins reports the shop's dedication to live shows has persisted.
On a hot July weekday, people are gathered by the Waterloo Records stage to hear the Cast Iron Shoes perform.
So, without further ado, let's give a warm Waterloo Records welcome to Cast Iron Shoes.
On the violin is Nicole Richwell. She's dressed in a denim jumpsuit and cowboy boots. She sings and plays multiple instruments for the band and says this small stage leads to intimate performances.
I think what we do with these wooden boxes is really special. We're making sound waves, and if you go to a show, you can feel it. They hit your body, and you like dance with other people and look people in the eye.
Ben Hayes is one of about 30 people in the audience and came in especially for this show.
I saw them about 4 years ago at a Friends of Traditional Music performance. It was just her and her friend Julie, a duo, and I was like, man, they got something special. And so I've kind of been watching them progress, and now they're going on tour in Europe, and I'm like, oh, thankfully they're really getting noticed. And so yeah, I love the energy.
Another music lover named Malachi Michael, who is a long way from home, was here for another reason.
I'm from California. We just looked up record stores near here, and then we went to one and then asked the people there for one with more emo stuff, and they said Waterloo, because we're on the hunt for emo and screamo, punk stuff, so we're kind of just looking around.
That's exactly what Karen Keller, one of Waterloo Records' new owners, wants to hear.
Especially here at our new store location, being able to connect with the fans, be around other people who are learning about music or just lonely and wanted to pop in, like having a space like that at a time like this is really special to deliver real experiences.
A longtime customer named John, whose last name I didn't get, has continued to support Waterloo throughout the years.
I've been coming to Waterloo's events for about 10 years, or maybe a little more, but just once in a while. Sometimes I have a friend in the music scene who's playing the Friday evening, and I try to catch that. And sometimes I can't because it's so popular that it would be crowded.
He got in today, but on this hot and sunny day, the store was packed. Keller says she's been blown away by the growth in sales and foot traffic from the new store location.
I think the move, which after being at the same location for 36 years, kind of put Waterloo back into conversation.
In a digital era, Keller says it's important to provide a place for people to connect over music.
I think when you have bands that come in, especially where it resonates with them, they clearly want to connect with their fans and stick around and sign every record. It reminds me why spaces like this are so important. Why it's so important to have physical places for people to gather, to commune over music, to meet the artists, and especially with the swell of AI, it is this human connection that matters so deeply, and that performance was really special.
Cast Iron Shoes performer Nicole Richwell can't remember the first time she discovered Waterloo, but is thankful for the opportunity to perform with her band.
I've been coming to shows at Waterloo and buying records here since I moved to Austin. It didn't even occur to me to book a show for my band here. My friends all had to be like, Nicole, you should put a Cast Iron Shoes show at Waterloo. You have all these vinyls now. And I'm really glad that I did. It's a huge honor to play here.
She's ecstatic that people came to the release show to buy a record.
What we do is really handcrafted. It takes a long time. Everything that we record is on tape and live tracked in one room with all the musicians. And it's a labor of love.
A store like Waterloo Records doesn't stay open for 44 years without the huge support of the community. Over generations and now 3 different locations, they've been gathering for a beer and free performances. That's also a labor of love. In Austin, I'm Prashaya Goins.
Support for Texas Standard comes from UT's Center for Professional Education, helping to guide professional growth every step of the way, with courses designed to improve professional skills, earn credentials, and make a career change. Details at professionaled.utexas.edu.
This is the Texas Standard. I'm Lucio Vasquez. The U.S. Senate is close to voting on a bill that would set new off-the-field rules for college sports. The Protect College Sports Act, sponsored by Texas Senator Ted Cruz, would regulate everything from media rights to conference realignment to when coaches can switch jobs. The idea is to bring order to the business of college sports after a tumultuous decade or so. Joining us now to tell us more is John Bryce, college sports insider for USA Today. John, welcome to the Texas Standard.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to the discussion.
Before we get into the nitty-gritty, though, of what the bill contains, can you help us understand why supporters say this legislation is necessary?
Well, it's necessary because really the entirety of this decade, college sports and college football in particular, has sort of gone off the rails since the onset of the transfer portal era that is the NCAA adopted earlier this decade with basically free unlimited player movement. On top of that, not long thereafter, you had the NIL era, name, image, and likeness, and then just last summer, the formal codification of the House settlement, which allowed then schools to directly pay student athletes through revenue share. So the most changes when you talk to college coaches, administrators, the most changes in the sport in the last 60 years have occurred in the last 5 years, and there are not proper guardrails in place. And it's truly any cliche you want to use, Wild West, Untamed Frontier, any of it, they all apply.
And I find it interesting that Congress is stepping in as opposed to just the NCAA or whatever, tell me more about that.
Well, Congress has had to step in, frankly, because the leagues, the power conferences, especially across the country, the Big Ten, the SEC, the ACC, the Big 12, which has a number of teams in Texas, they all ask for federal intervention because they couldn't settle on uniform rules themselves. They also need antitrust protection. And so they had to ask for federal intervention because the fact of the matter is they all want rules, but none of the conferences, none of the coaches, none of the leaders wants to be the entity that sets the rules because they all believe that will ultimately be used against them in recruiting or other marketing tactics or what have you. And so they all agree uniformly on a need for guardrails, rules that everyone is supposed to adhere to. They also all freely admit no one is obeying the loose rules that are in place right now.
So tell me about some of these guardrails. What would be the most important provisions in the bill?
I think the major thing is, and we wrote extensively on this last week, in order to get the Big Ten and SEC stamp of approval to push forward with the Protect College Sports Act, they wanted to increase that rev share number immediately. So there's an increase of 25 million, up to 25 million total. That's probably the number one element of the bill. Now, that final 5 million is earmarked only for women's sports and Olympic non-revenue sports. They allowed some potential for conference expansion, which has been another driving element of this chaos in this decade, but it's a 171-page bill. It's got a lot of stuff in there, and that's why it's significant. It is bipartisan. It also has the quote-unquote Lane Kiffin rule, that Lane Kiffin's hardly the first coach to ever leave before the season ended, but it provides some penalties and says there will be federal intervention if a coach leaves his team before that team is done with its competition calendar.
And I know you've mentioned also money that college athletes are able to earn through their name, image, likeness, etc. How would that look moving forward if this bill were to pass?
Yeah, great question, and a significant component also of the bill. Initially, the bill was drafted to say that schools could not provide direct facilitation for NIL deals, those name, image, and likeness deals, and that if they did, through like a third-party vendor, let's say a school is a Nike apparel school or an Adidas apparel school, well, those deals still had to quote, pass the true business purpose test. And now with this Protect College Sports Act bill proposal, that wouldn't necessarily be the case. The third-party deals arranged by the school, like with those apparel or with Learfield or its multimedia rights partner, they will not moving forward have to pass the true business test. There still has to be some proof of legitimacy to the deal. The student athlete, he or she, would still have to appear in like marketing campaigns or social media posts or go do autograph signings on behalf of the school affiliated entity, but it would no longer be restricted the way that it is under the current terms of the House settlement.
And this would have some pretty huge impacts, because this is not just football, but all college sports, yeah?
Yeah, that is correct. The coach, when a coach could leave, is primarily targeted at football. The language in the bill actually only addresses football coaches, but it would have dramatic impact on the money of sports. It also seeks to address what we discussed earlier, that is the unlimited transfer, and it looks to make the transfer a one-time thing unless a student athlete loses his or her coach for whatever reason, then he or she would be free to transfer again. But you have guys right now that are transferring 4 times in 4 years to 4 different football programs. Sometimes a coach told me last month when I was in Frisco at Big 12 Media Days, a coach told me that he had a guy leave for $24,000 more over 1 year, but he went from being 12 hours short of graduation to 40 hours short of graduation at his new school with only 1 year of college eligibility remaining. And so that's the naysayers don't like the one-time transfer element in the bill because they say it restricts player freedom. I do believe the coaches, administrators, the politicians, the people are genuinely concerned about ensuring that these student athletes still have a chance to graduate college. And the numbers reflect the more you transfer, the lower your graduation rate becomes.
And Republicans bringing this bill to the floor in the Senate, they seem fairly confident that it'll pass there. But I'm curious, are there any indications of how this bill may fare if it were to reach the House of Representatives?
There are competing narratives there about how it will fare in the House of Representatives. I do know with a Republican House, Republican Senate, and a Republican in the Oval Office that timing is seen as crucial. But again, this is a bipartisan bill. In the Senate, they believe they have the 60 votes to get it passed. They, in fact, though, are wanting to get closer to 70 votes. I was told by multiple people this week on Capitol Hill, because they believe they really need the momentum carrying forward. If they get somewhere between 65 and 70 votes, they believe that sends a clear message to the House about what their mandate is with the bill. That doesn't mean there can't be additional modifications or deliberations when it gets to the House floor. But also President Trump earlier this week came out publicly and spoke about the bill and said it's a priority and that he wants to see this gotten done. He wants to see this accomplished. So the further it advances, the more pressure there is on the House. And we know that President Trump will not be shy about amplifying that pressure in a public setting if he feels the need.
We've been speaking to John Bryce, college sports insider for USA Today. We'll link to more of his reporting over at texasstandard.org. John, thanks again for your time.
Enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Folks, we are out of time for today's show. You can look for us on social media. That's at Texas Standard. You can also catch up on the top Texas stories you might have missed this week through our newsletters. We've got a couple of them, and we can deliver them straight to your inbox. Sign up at newsletter.texasstandard.org. You can also go online, texasstandard.org, to keep up with the news throughout the day. I'm Lucio Vasquez, and from all of us here at the Texas Standard, thank you so much for listening. Hope you can join us again tomorrow.
Philanthropic support for Texas Standard comes from Casey and Scott O'Hare, the Winkler Family Foundation, Lynn Dobson and Greg Woldridge, Adrian Killam, the George Huntington Family, and the Cynthia and George Mitchell Foundation.